Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I am so thrilled to share this evening with you. My name is Sierra Martinez, and I am the Senior Manager of Digital Marketing and Innovation here at Blue Star Families. Tonight is all about you, our veterans, caregivers, and family members. I'm so excited that you are here to engage in conversation with us. I love seeing everybody sharing where you're calling in from this evening. I'm here in North Carolina, and we are joined by so many panelists this evening. I can't even begin to get started, but I'm so excited that they're here with us. Opening the conversation tonight, we are going to have Dr. Lynda Davis, the Chief Veterans Experience Officer at the Department of Veteran Affairs, and Juanita Jimenez-Soto from AARP, National Veterans and Military Families Manager. This conversation is going to be so fruitful, and we want you to participate. So if you have questions, please feel free to share them in the chat, and we will ask the panelists to respond throughout the evening. If we can't get to them tonight, please know we've already started the conversation in the Blue Star neighborhood, and we will continue that even after the evening is over. Juanita, I am super excited to pass the baton to you. Thank you for being with us this evening, and welcome everyone.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here at Blue Star Families. It is AARP and Blue Star Families is a great collaboration. We are very grateful to be here with you and all of you out there who are watching this. Just want to tell you a little something about AARP before we get started. So AARP, if you didn't know, has a long history of supporting those who have served in the United States Armed Forces. And in 2018, we launched Veterans and Military Families, the initiative, because we saw a need and we wanted to support and strengthen the veterans and what they were getting, the information, working together with them. And now we have nearly 6 million AARP members who have served or are currently serving in the U.S. military. And right now, AARP is the largest veteran support organization in the marketplace. And of course, you can always find free resources, information at aarp.org/veterans and in Spanish at aarp.org/veteranos. Now, when it comes to veterans and military families, just to tell you a little bit really quickly before we get to Dr. Davis, because I know you guys really want to hear from her, I just want to say that we are on a mission to empower veterans, military, and their families. We don't leave anybody out. And we're trying to help them navigate the complexities of life's transitions by delivering tangible, actionable value and providing information on caregiving, benefits, fraud prevention, and work and jobs, information that is available to everyone. You do not have to be a member of AARP. If you are, thank you, but you do not have to be a member of AARP to access this information because we wanted to make sure that it's available to everyone, especially our veterans. Now, I will tell you a little bit about myself. I am the National Manager of Veterans and Military Families at AARP, and I did not have the honor of serving our country, but I am married to a Navy veteran. I am also the mother of a West Point graduate and now lieutenant in the Army. And I also have a nephew serving in the United States Coast Guard. So this information is very valuable and it really touches home for me, which is why I am so passionate about the work that I do. And another individual who's very passionate about the work she does is Dr. Lynda Davis. Now, Dr. Davis was sworn in as the Chief Veterans Experience Officer, as Sierra said at the very beginning, for the Department of Veterans Affairs. In this role, she leads a high-performing team that can utilize consumer experience data, tools, technology, and engagement to improve the lives of veterans and their families, caregivers, and survivors. You know, the whole thing is about earning the trust and doing the work. Now, previously, Dr. Davis served as Chief Veteran Experience Officer in President Trump's first administration. During her tenure, she led the implementation of the Consumer Experience Framework. She launched the White House VA Hotline and published the Consumer Experience Cookbook, which has become a model for government application of consumer experience. Now, before her VA service, Dr. Davis was the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Military, Community, and Family Policy. She also served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Military Personnel at the Department of the Navy. And she held leadership roles in the nonprofit and private sectors as well. We're talking Executive Vice President of the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, or TAPS, and CEO of a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. Dr. Davis served as an Army Signal Corps officer and as a clinician at a Veterans Affairs Medical Center. She's also held faculty positions at the University of Southern California. Dr. Davis, wow, thank you for joining us.
No, thank you very much, Juanita. It makes me sound even older than I am, which is considerable. And I certainly have earned all my AARP and Social Security benefits. But the opportunity to serve once again just could not be passed up, especially with this incredible team I have at the VA, like Andy Martinez, and on behalf of our community, which you and I and all the other incredible panelists we'll be hearing from are so committed to and are part of. We are our own customer.
And one thing that I would tell you, I met you in person earlier this year, and I was starstruck. I don't know why, but I was. I'm like, oh, holy macaroni. She's pretty awesome. I mean, you have a history of supporting service members, veterans, their families. What motivates you to keep doing this important work? Because you're a very good person. I mean,
listen, when we're all growing up as whether we all kind of wonder, I think, what am I going to do with my life? And we try different things on, and we have a sense that somehow it's not just about coasting if we're lucky. The big challenge is life is to figure out where our fit is. And I was lucky at after being a clinical psychologist, I had the chance to serendipitously, after giving birth to my first child, decide to join the Army at 32, 38, 38, 36, somewhere in there. I was old. And it changed my life. And it introduced me to my call and my purpose and my community. So now I have had the honor of serving in uniform, and I have had the honor of being a mother, as you were referring, who has a son who's a veteran now, and having been the caregiver of several veterans and surviving dearly beloved veterans who I've cared for and who have died. So it's one of those things, whatever we feel like we've called to, when we make that match, when we get that fit, there's no saying no. So when I was given the chance to come back again and come out of quasi-retirement, it's just my stamina. So sometimes you may end up carrying me along or dragging me along behind you, but I'll fight to the end for this community that we all love so much.
well, thank you very much. I can tell you that we really appreciate all that you do. And you held this position once. You're back here with the VA as chief, chief Veterans Experience Officer. What are your priorities this time around?
So last time you mentioned a couple things that we were able to do. a few things that we did with groups like Blue Star and Military Community Family Policy, and in the DoD and NVCN and others, is we changed the language in the Code of Federal Regulations. So the VA now has to include in everything we do veterans and their families, caregivers, and survivors. It is our language now. We also created the Federal Advisory Committee, that is the Veteran and Family Caregiver Survivor Federal Advisory Committee, which we will see activated again very soon. And we created things like the Elizabeth Dole Center of Excellence for Veteran and Family Caregivers. Many, many things we did with the team, including some of the things you will hear about today, like the Quick Start guides. Whether you're a caregiver, a veteran, a survivor, a family member, trying to make it as easy as possible for you as a consumer or our customer to get access to the services and resources you have earned, you deserve, and that you should be able to get easily and quickly and efficiently, and be delivered in a way that earns and secures your trust. So this time, as we look at the landscape, of course, we listen to our higher headquarters, and there has been a pledge to ensure that we're addressing 3 key areas. One of them is transition, the experience of the transitioning service member. And that is not just the family member, it is also, I mean, the veteran, or excuse me, transition, it is not just the service member in uniform, but for us, it is also considering the experience of the family member who may or may not be a caregiver, or the bereaved family member who is a survivor, and all of them have to go through the experience also. So transition is number 1. Number 2, I would mention, is continuing to work diligently on the identification of what circumstances, what conditions lead to suicide, and what are the risks, and how we can help address those and eliminate that horrible, tragic circumstance when people are feeling so hopeless that there's no other alternative. Finally, we're going to be addressing homelessness, still ongoing, and more rigorously. If you've seen the president's executive order recently about the new National Center for Warrior Independence in Los Angeles for homeless veterans. So there's some pretty aggressive things going on, but underlying it all will be that commitment in the Code of Federal Regulations to veterans, their families, caregivers, and survivors.
Everything that you mentioned is great, but and it all ties into benefits. So what is the best way? Because you have to get the information to the veterans. So what's the best way to get that information to veterans, information about benefits? Because it all ties into that.
Yes, it does. And thank you. Thank you, Juanita. My colleague, Andrea Martinez, or Andy Martinez, will be putting some things in the chat. So it's key that the veteran understand the benefits, but I want you all to help me, all 56 of you who are on the call, and your colleagues, and everyone who will watch this later and read information from AARP. Help me help not only the veterans, but those service members who are going to be transitioning in the next 2 years, and their families, because they all need to know about this information. So one of the first things to do in understanding, of course, there's the offer of the transition assistance program. And that's not only for the service member, but it's also for the family member. The spouse can go, and I urge them to do that. In addition to receiving that information, we have a lot of information at the VA that we provide, and that starts when you're 18 months before you've taken off the uniform. One of the key things is you can literally call one of our agents for any of the information I'm going to give you at MyVA 411. It's available 24/7, 365, and you can ask for any question, any kind of information, and you will be directed with a warm handoff to the right administration. As you know, in the VA, we have the Veterans Benefit Administration. So, Juanita, that's probably the first place most people stop. There's the Veterans Health Administration. There's the National Cemetery Administration, and there's also the Board of Veterans Appeals. All are available depending on the need of the transitioning service member. One of the things, I think there was some information put in the chat, but there's www.va.gov, and then you can go into benefits. Another thing that we did to make it very easy to understand this was to develop quick start guides, which are families and yes, refer to accredited VSO and call my phone. So Andy's taken it away. She's kind of like, a very rich source of information here. And whatever Andy is putting in the chat, make sure that you note that information. The veteran service officers are an external individual accredited who provides information to the service members in transition or the veterans seeking to have access to VA benefits and get their ratings. But the quick start guides that we mentioned, those are available all the time. They're 2-page information sheets with all of the phone numbers and the links and everything that you need. It's handy and it's easy to understand and easy to read because it was created with our customer, you all, in mind. I would say that having access to the VA is critical regardless of when you join. I think I would encourage people to join and enroll in VA benefits, get a rating as soon as you leave the military. However, you can join when you're 85 years old. You can get your ratings, you can have your records considered. And many of us who end up in the private sector, or even a government job, do have the benefits of healthcare. And if we're feeling pretty good or coping all right with whatever was bothering us related to our military service, we go on with life. And we don't realize until maybe we're a bit older that there's benefits that we missed out on, education benefits, housing benefits, or that maybe we need some assistance in our senior years. It could be with assisted living, respite that our caregiver might need. It could be hearing aids. It could be hip replacements. It could be dental work. It could be prosthetic foot lifts, and certainly much worse, especially if we've been exposed to toxins and develop something awful like cancer. So it's never too late to become affiliated and enroll in the VA. It does not mean you have to use any of the benefits or care services, but it will be there needed. It will save you money, but most importantly, you will be served by people who have a military cultural competence and a commitment to your care who understand you. We have the best doctors and the best performance in our hospital system against the private sector. So whether you think you might use it right away or in the future, please consider it. And if you're a family member, encourage your veteran to do that, because we never know, unfortunately. My husband died very suddenly, and we never know when we're going to need the benefits and the assistance. And there are survivor benefits that are very important to have. So I would say in transition or at any point in life, we welcome you.
You know, you mentioned survivors, you mentioned caregivers, and that is one of the issues that, of course, AARP champions information for caregivers. So when it comes to caregivers, how can veterans learn more about their benefits through VA or a partner? Do you have any tips? Because sometimes, like you mentioned, maybe the veteran cannot advocate for themselves, so their caregiver must do it. How do you go about doing that and be successful in that you get assistance for your loved one?
Good question. Good question. And we're serving more and more caregivers now, and thanks to even the new legislation in the Elizabeth Dole Act. So the first, always take that My VA 411 phone number. There's also a phone number for our caregiver support program, which has a variety of programs that assist caregivers, including even a peer support component of it. But that support line is 1-855-260-3274. There's also, as I mentioned, the quick start guides. There's a quick start guide for caregivers. So whether you're the veteran or you're the caregiver, you can pursue assistance that way. And there's assistance for caregivers in both the Veterans Benefit Administration and the Veteran Health Administration, depending on the severity of your veteran that you're caring for and the necessity of you being available for the ADLs and other things like that. The local caregiver team at the different VA hospitals, you can get those and find those by state and by medical center at www.caregiver.va.gov/support, and then new-CSC. I think Andy can put that in the chat. So you can start big and go smaller. You can start with your local hospital. There's nothing that says you can't walk in directly to the closest VA medical center. There's 157 of them around the country, or our regional offices for benefits, and just show up. Say, I want some help. I want some information. I want to know what I'm eligible for. I mentioned that we have the quick start guide for that also. And there's respite care options information available, in addition to information on how we support caregivers with who need not only respite but mental health support themselves, or those who need to be supported as their loved one goes through palliative care or hospice. We're now very aggressively implementing the Dole Act, and we're really, really working closely with the community to make sure we're listening, because we know a lot of you were instrumental in helping write the bill. So we want to make sure we get it right and that it does meet your needs.
So, Dr. Davis, I mean, all the information you're giving us is great. It is helping someone out there. Unfortunately, you know, we can't monopolize all your time. We wish we could. But just, so the last question for you is, are there 3 tips that you have that would help a caregiver who has maybe tried a lot of what you've already said and they can't get anywhere? Are there three things or three tips or, documentation that they need that is very critical to securing that care?
Um, I see some comments popping up from Melissa. First of all, there's key organizations on this call. Melissa Comeau and the National VRCN, and from Red Cross. Obviously, that's a source to go. The My VA 411. I would give Andy's email address or my phone number, but you may not be able to get through. Nonetheless, that caregiver support number that I gave you. And what I found most helpful to me is I'm an expert. Last time I was here in the VA, and I was caring for 3 people at the same time. And it was breaking me. And I still didn't know where to go. I still didn't know how to turn. I didn't know how to transfer credits for people for housing assistance, etc. What helped me the most is becoming part of and hardwired into the peer groups that could help answer the questions, and then becoming part of the caregiver support program that I mentioned that has their own peer groups and their own helpline. I would say that a lot of the assistance comes from outside the VA itself. We're going to be creating through the Dole Act an opportunity for caregivers to be peer advocates for one another and to speak at that. Whatever you need to do not give up. There are days when you will want to. We've all been there. And you won't know where to turn. Navigation is the hardest part. If someone is feeling that way, we also have the Veteran Crisis Line. And it's not just about the veteran being at risk for suicide. It's about the caregiver also being at the end of his or her ability to keep going. So please ensure that you don't give up. And if you do need to reach out to us, Andy will put some information in how to reach us, because we do have a line into my office. And I also have, we scan and review the My VA 411 is under me, and Andy works with it. We run that. So we do listen to comments and take calls very seriously and make sure we do the service recovery needed to support all of our veterans, families, caregivers, and the survivors.
That's wonderful. And thank you very much for sharing your personal experience, because if you are in the know, it's consistency. And I can see where, like you said, you get frustrated, you get nowhere, but if you stop, you're not going to progress. And then, unfortunately, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of veterans out there trying to get the help. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your transparency. We do appreciate you and everything, all the wonderful experience you bring, all the work you're doing for our veterans. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. We appreciate you.
My honor. Thank you.
So now we are going to our panel, and I'm telling you, it's a crackerjack panel. We are joined by Amy Goyer. She is the AARP caregiving expert, and she will talk to us about caregiving, her experience, and what she had to do to get help for her family member. Melissa Comeau, director of the American Red Cross's Military Veteran Caregiving Network. Melissa, apologies for just butchering your last name. I totally apologize. But I really want to get to y'all, because the information that you're bringing is going to help someone out there. So let's get at it. let's see. What resources does VA provide veterans for their caregivers that you have seen? Let's start with you, Amy.
Sure. Yes. Thank you all for inviting me to be a part of this event, and I'm really happy to be here. I cared for my dad, who was a veteran of World War II and the Korean War, and my grandfather years before that. There was a lot more support from the VA with my dad than there was for my grandfather. Some of the things that are helpful, for example, mentioned the VA Caregiver Support Program. As a caregiver in my situation, I would have fallen under the program of General Caregiver Support Services. My dad passed away almost 7 years ago next month. And so some things have changed since I was caring for him. There are some more supports available. But some of the things that I was able to get for my dad and that you may be able to get. For example, my dad had aid and attendance benefits. And these are benefits that help pay for care. And so he received a certain amount every month that helped pay for the care that he needed. My dad had Alzheimer's. And he had not been enrolled in VA healthcare. So for many of these benefits, you have to be enrolled in VA healthcare. And so I went through the process of getting him enrolled. He was like many veterans who, once he was done serving, he did not avail himself of these benefits, even though he could have. But at this point, he really needed those benefits he had earned. And so through getting enrolled in VA healthcare, his medications were paid for. We got medical equipment, including we got ramps for the house, a rolling shower chair, which the VA physical therapist advocated for, because for us to get him into the shower, it became very difficult towards the end of his life. We got medical supplies, whether it be bandages or all sorts of things. Incontinence supplies, which if you're caring for someone who has incontinence issues, it's very expensive to get those supplies. So that was a huge help once we started receiving those. Other things include respite care. We got, I think it was 6 hours, I forget every however many weeks, but that was 6 hours of help that I didn't have before. And that was extremely helpful. We also got home health aides who came and helped us get dad out of bed, get him bathed, and that sort of thing. Those are some of the things that we received. There are additional things. You want to jump in, Melissa, and talk about some of the things I haven't mentioned?
Absolutely, Amy. Thank you so much for what you've done for your dad. And I mean, sharing your journey with us here, but also through the great website and Facebook page you have with AARP has really offered a lot of information to many veteran caregivers. So I just want to publicly thank you for all that you have been to this community. I am currently a caregiver, so I get to care for my husband. It is a great honor. He is a combat wounded Marine and was transferred out of the Wounded Warrior Battalion at Camp Pendleton right into the VA system. We had a very different experience than many others, like today, where we got a really nice bridge, right? From active duty to veteran status. My husband's care was never compromised. He was receiving excellent care there at Camp Pendleton. And then when it came to his medical retirement, we had already established care at the VA and had a pretty seamless experience. I know that is not what most people go through. And in my work with the Military and Veteran Caregiver Network, we have 13,000 plus caregivers who have a gauntlet of different experiences, becoming a caregiver, identifying as a caregiver, and then leading to the support and services that can really help you as a caregiver. Early in my journey, I was part of the program of comprehensive assistance for family caregivers, which at the time was crucial to our family. It provided me with caregiver training on how to care for a loved one. I got thrown into this in my early 30s. To a stipend that could help us kind of manage the income loss from me having to leave the workforce to care for my husband at this time, and other support from the VA and beyond. So I mentioned coaching into care, and I do just want to say that that program is actually no longer running, and it actually transfers to the caregiver support line. And I want to say that that's also a good thing, because all of the people that answer the phone at that caregiver support line are trained social workers. And the team that came up with the coaching into care model were these wonderful VA social workers who met with caregivers like me, like you, who didn't know where to go, didn't know what to say, maybe had a veteran that was so resistant to any care or services at the VA, and really worked one-on-one to come up with, how do you get someone into care? You know, what could I say? What could I do? What are the benefits? How can I, as a caregiver, get someone into the VA when they haven't been engaged at all? So that's just one note I wanted to say, because that caregiver support line is still up and running. You can call that at any time. And again, it's answered by social workers that really care. So we did all of that. I continued in the VA. They have a mentorship program. They have just started a podcast. They have education series, calls. Not everyone likes to be on Zoom, right? So you can call into certain resources and get support that way as well. And then I just want to echo what Dr. Lynda Davis said about those peer groups. So being in things like the Blue Star Family Neighborhood, where you can connect with people one-on-one and like, this is what worked for me, this is what didn't work for me. Oh my gosh, you have to talk to this person because they know that. Or in the AARP Facebook page, it's the same thing, right? It's that natural, organic desire to make things better for the families coming behind us that really has been the best support for me. I have made some of the best friends in my whole life. I never would have met these wonderful people had my husband not been wounded or injured, and we had not been thrust into this journey. And so I always call them my silver lining friendships. But really, they've saved me along the way, many times offering resources I never even thought of.
Absolutely. And I just want to jump in and say, we don't walk into this knowing how to find all these things. And whether you're like me, where my dad hadn't served in many years, or you when you were younger. So I think that finding things is really critical, and that's where the VA caregiver support program can be extremely helpful. But as you say, that can be supplemented with all of the other organizations that can help. One of the things that I have talked with a lot of caregivers about is some are under the impression that their loved one has to have a disability rating in order to receive any kind of caregiver support from the VA. And that's not true. My dad did not have any VA, military service disability rating, but we did receive all those services. So there are other eligibility requirements. Like, for example, for the aid and attendance, the veteran had to have served during wartime, but it's always worth looking into. And as Dr. Lynda Davis said, don't give up. And I wanted to give up. And I'm sure you did too, Melissa, many times. And there was one time when I had trouble with the company that the VA had contracted with to provide the respite care, and they just weren't sending the person and all that. And I gave up for a while, but I went back to it a few months later, because that help was critical. Absolutely critical. It's worth it. I know it can be confusing and arduous, but it's worth it for the support that you get from the VA in the end.
And the thing is that you have to be consistent, and you have to just keep going. Just like, the veterans who need the help, they were there, they served, they kept going. That's what a lot of folks have to do. And I can understand, I'm reading some of the comments, I can totally understand the frustration. But people want to help people. And that's what we have going for us when it comes to veterans. And like you said, the Facebook, the caregiving Facebook, the neighborhood with Blue Star Families, what the Red Cross is doing too, because they've got a group as well. We need to put that information out there. So thank you both for putting that info out there, because it is greatly needed. And also, veterans, sometimes they need to access housing, in-home resources, because I tell everyone, everything comes back to caregiving somehow. So what resources are out there for that, for someone looking for that type of help?
In terms of housing and making the home, one of the resources that AARP has, which is a fairly new resource, is our home benefits. It's the full title is the AARP Veterans and Military Families Home Modifications Benefits Guide. It's a mouthful, but it goes over some of the benefits that you may be able to get to help with modifications to the home to make it safe for caring for your loved one at home. And I think this is a really critical factor because the vast majority of people are cared for at home, and that includes veterans. And so we need to be able to make the home safe and viable and comfortable for our loved ones. So be sure to check that out. We'll put the link in the chat for you. And then, the other thing is that there are local organizations that can help with that. In addition to just getting care in the home through the VA, many times our veterans are eligible for other types of in-home services through their area agencies on aging or other community-based services. So remember that most of us put together a puzzle, and all of the support doesn't come from the VA. It is a combination of that plus home and community-based services, adult day centers, in-home care. So we need to look that way. If you don't know, if you're not familiar with Area Agency on Aging, you can contact them by using the Elder Care Locator, and that's just eldercare.acl.gov. And they also have a toll-free number, and you can look up for your Area Agency on Aging or your Aging and Disability Resource Center there. So that's something to kind of throw into the mix as well. For home care, they often also know about local programs or service organizations who will come in and build a ramp for you if you're not able to get it from the VA. The veteran service organizations are amazing, and there's a huge long list of them. You can get the list on the VA site, and they can actually, connect you with sort of the supplemental things that you're not getting from the VA sometimes.
And Melissa, the Red Cross, you have services out there too that help out.
Absolutely. So I always tell people every community is a little bit different. Every state's a little bit different. We're a national organization serving caregivers across the globe. And so there's no one size fits all. I love how Amy put it. It's a puzzle piece we're putting together with what's available in your community. One thing I want people to know is there is the National Resource Directory, which has all kinds of resources for military and veteran families. There's also our Red Cross Hero Care Resource Directory, which has at least 800 resources for every zip code in America. So you can go in your community, and it might be a faith-based community that literally all they want to do is build ramps for, wheelchair-bound veterans to get into their homes. There's all kinds of cute, just amazing, heartfelt support that you kind of have to think outside of the box. Sometimes you might have a specific diagnosis. So Alzheimer's, there are great organizations that just want to help Alzheimer patients as well as Alzheimer caregivers. And so sometimes doing your searches with a condition that your loved one might be dealing with or that you're caring for, that can open up a big avenue for resources and support that can help you in very specific ways. But there is no one size fits all, and every community is a little bit different. And again, I really like that drumbeat of just keep going. Apply for another resource. Maybe you're not going to get that one. The next day, maybe you apply for something else. And it is just one foot in front of the other. There are peers in communities everywhere as well, local, also online. Not everyone can get out in their community, and those online resources are really important. So like ours at the Red Cross, the Elizabeth Dole Foundation also has an online community where you can really connect with people walking this experience with you. And like I said, those little ideas, those tips, that shoulder to cry on, that high five you can get when things go right is so valuable on this experience. But connecting to others that really get it is key.
And you mentioned the people that are caring for the caregiver, caring for the veteran, they need help too. Because if you can't help yourself, how can taking care of yourself, how can you help someone else? What resources are out there? Amy, I'll go to you first, since you are caregiving expert. What resources are available so that the caregiver can take care of themselves, get it together, and they can take care of their veteran?
Yeah, I always, when I was intensively caring for both my dad and my mom who'd had a stroke and my older sister. So when I was doing all that, I told people that I kind of figured out a system where you may hear put the oxygen mask on yourself first. That analogy didn't work well for me, because to me, that's when the plane's going down. Caregiving is a daily thing. It's a marathon. It goes on. For me, it was 11 years of very intensive caregiving. And I had to learn how to take care of myself on an ongoing basis, because you can't do it every now and then. It has to be sort of a low level all the time. And so I started thinking about it more like putting gas in my car. The car can't run on empty, and neither can we. So it's just practical to take care of ourselves. So you may know this in your head, but it's awfully hard to actually put it into action. So sometimes that is realizing and consciously creating joy in your life, because that fills you up, or noticing the joy and caring for your loved ones, or the beautiful flowers you keep in the room, or a good cup of coffee. But it's also things like what I call premium fill-ups: taking a break, doing a webinar, going to a support group meeting. I think finding a support group and connecting with other caregivers. We've mentioned a couple of different things. I put a link for the AARP Family Caregivers Discussion Group on Facebook. Melissa mentioned Elizabeth Dole Foundation, Hidden Heroes, the Red Cross supports. There are local caregiver support groups also in your area, where the area agencies on aging are generally pretty in the know about those. Finding those ways to kind of give yourself that support. And then there's also what I think of as tune-ups, time away from caregiving, which is the hardest thing to do. But that's where the respite care, whether it's from the VA or from another organization, can help. So thinking about those things, then you have to do your routine maintenance. You have to get sleep. You have to, prioritize some nutrition and some exercise, and going to your own doctor's appointments and that type of thing. So when you're looking at your own health and well-being, consider the mental health support that you can get, whether that's from your own employer or your own health insurance, or through one of the VA programs, the two caregiver support programs from the VA, one of these connections. And also, we've mentioned the Veterans Crisis Line, where you can always call and get support there, or you can also contact the National Suicide Prevention and Crisis Line. And that is not just if you're having suicidal ideation, that is if you are in crisis. And many of us hit the wall, we're in that point where we can't function, we're crying all the time. Talk to someone and try to get support for that in that way. And there are some VA mobile apps. There's a PTSD mobile app. There are some other things like that you might be able to avail yourself of. Melissa, jump in.
Oh my gosh, you really ran the gauntlet there. I think there's another underlying issue, and you started to hit on it. It's so hard to make the time and the space, or even have the money to go and take care of yourself sometimes, right? And I think one thing I wish more caregivers, more family members knew, is that your life and your health matters too. We can get really engrossed in caring for others in lots of ways, especially with a veteran that needs, has complex care needs. But you are a human worthy of love and support and health and well-being as well. We talk a lot about whole health at the Red Cross, and we're really invested in giving you practical tools, to find ways to really honoring those premium fill-ups, as you put it, Amy. But just to know that you are worth just as much care as you give to others. I really want caregivers and family members to know that you matter too.
And the one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is that when you're caring for a veteran, those caregivers start younger. I mean, Melissa, they start younger now. They care longer. And so having those resources, making those connections, and being in events like this one where you can get the information, it matters. It matters. So I wanted to wrap up with you. I don't want to, but I have to. So Amy and Melissa, give me maybe one tip, something that has helped you as caregivers to maybe find that resource, or help yourself, because I know there's a lot of guilt also involved with caring for yourself, but what about him or what about her? but you have to care for yourself. So one thing that you have learned on your caregiving journey that you want others to know.
Well, I'll start on this one because you hit on it. Caregiving is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And you train for marathons very differently than you do for a sprint. And when you look at caregiving over decades, it's really wise to plan how you're going to take care of yourself on that journey. So, just again, caregivers, you matter, your health matters. And whatever you can do, whatever moment you can find, you are so, so worthy to take it.
And we matter just as much as the people we care for, because we often put them first, which when you're in a crisis, maybe you have to do that, but on an ongoing basis, you can't do that. I think the thing that I would like to share is that taking care of ourselves as caregivers is mental health care, it's physical health care, and it's also our financial security. For me, I went through, as I mentioned earlier, caring for multiple people for many years, very complicated situations, and I ended up in bankruptcy. Now, I'm a caregiving expert. I've worked in the field of aging my whole life, but I'm not a financial expert. And the mistake I made was not to get some type of financial advice for myself. I took such good care of my parents' finances, but I ran myself into debt. And so, what I would really like to say is when you think about caring for yourself, think about caring for your own financial security as part of that. And AARP has a financial workbook for family caregivers. We'll drop the link in the chat that kind of can help you do that. Do financial planning, figure out and ensure that you're getting all the benefits that your loved ones are able to get and eligible for, veterans benefits and other types of supports as well, and ensure that you protect yourself, because in the end then we have not that many years to rebuild our own finances when our loved ones have passed. So that's my biggest message to you, is that it's your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health, and your financial health.
Amy and Melissa, thank you so much. Thank you for being transparent and sharing your personal experiences. I think it's important for people to know that you not only champion efforts within your organizations, the Red Cross, AARP, but you also live it and you've lived it. So you know what you're talking about, and it really does make a huge difference. Thank you both for joining us. And I know we have a lot of questions in chat, and that's great. That's good. We want those questions so we can help more people.
We'll stick around if anybody has more questions.
Thank you. Thank you. And I told you it was going to be jam-packed. So now we are going to have a little conversation with Leah Christensen. She is the Associate Director, Clinical Operations, Survivor's Assistant, and Memorial Support Program, Care Management, Social Work Services, Department of Veterans Affairs. I mean, you name it, she does it. Uh, she's there, she's in the know, and she has a wealth of experience when it comes to supporting military and veteran caregivers, which we just mentioned, and we just had a little chat about that. Leah, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so pleased to be here, and it's an important topic to talk about preparing for that journey from caregiver to survivor. So just pleased to be here.
And that's the one thing. I know we've had some questions and chat about that. So end of life, we don't want to talk about it. It's a very, very touchy, emotional topic, even on a good day, as they say. So despite the difficulty of the topic, preparing for end of life, even for a healthy individual, it's important to do that, right? I mean, because you need to make sure that you've aligned everything and you have the information, and there's a lot out there. Where do you start, Lynda? I mean, Leah, where do you start?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question, and I think we can sometimes get overwhelmed with it, but we really start with a conversation. And, I'm the daughter of a Vietnam veteran, and not all conversations go this way, but he sat me down one day and said, "I'd like to show you where my bank accounts are, and here is my file that's called in case of my death." and he wanted to review that with me. And I'm so grateful he did, even though those are things that we don't necessarily want to always talk about. But it's really about that conversation, and getting it started. And I think what is important is that it's really giving it that time and space to be able to talk about it. You can't broach all topics all at once, but really it can be conversations that you have over time. Sometimes people feel nervous to talk about it. Sometimes they need to kind of ponder and think about their choices. That's totally understandable. The important thing is really to kind of try to have them open up for you to truly listen to what they're sharing, because that really builds trust. So even just kind of opening that conversation to have sometimes the way that I think about it is really thinking about your values. Melissa had mentioned whole health, and what we talk about in whole health is what matters to you, not what's the matter with you. And so I think about that too with these kinds of conversation. It's really being given the chance to talk about what is important to you, what do you value, and what does the person that you're talking with value as well, giving them the chance to share that. And if we keep that kind of at the heart of the conversation, those conversations just tend to go better. And so I can share a little bit, if helpful, if we have time, about kind of ways to open that conversation.
Mm.
Um, so sometimes it helps to just kind of, I always say, like, to have your sentence ready, right? Sometimes it helps to kind of prepare and practice ahead of time. And so having an opening statement that says that something like, I need your help with something, kind of gives that person a heads up that you're going to talk about something where you really need their attention. I think many of us have probably had conversations that are hard, and you kind of give it that little bit of a warning shot. And then you could say something like, even though we're okay right now, I want to be prepared for the future. And we talk about some things that matter to me? Or will you help me think about my future and your future as well? Or, can you and I just have a conversation about our final wishes, to really help to be able to I want to be able to help to honor those wishes. I want to make sure I do, for you, what it is that you want at end of life or after you've died. Sometimes people will kind of go back and say, I was thinking about what happened to our friend, your grandmother, or somebody who's recently died or died in the past, and they didn't have their affairs in order, and I don't want our families to go through what they went through. So I want to make sure that we're prepared. So those are just kind of some opening ways to have an opening of the conversation. And what I guess I would say right now, especially to caregivers, is that what we know, and based on the work of Dr. Davis's office and their journey mapping for survivors, is that who have had these conversations, who've prepared, um, before someone dies, have a much better experiencing, understanding, and accessing those survivor benefits, and kind of navigating all that goes along with the survivor process if they have done it upfront in advance. So I kind of think about it as like a little bit of a gift to your future self to start having these conversations now.
So let me ask you, you mentioned survivors. What is the first thing they need to do? Let's say they didn't have that
Mhm.
conversation and they need to access those benefits. What's the first thing they need to do?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we have a really wonderful, resourceful book, or booklet, if you will, that's called Planning Your Legacy. And we have that link available. And that's a nice way to kind of go through and look at all of the different available benefits. Now, that is a pre-planning booklet. So it is helpful to do it in advance, but it also does give you information that you need about the available benefits for survivors. There's also a way to get connected with the National Cemetery and see what they offer in terms of burial. If a veteran wants to be buried in a national cemetery, there's also a Living Legacy Memorial page, as well as a memorial page where veterans or their families can tell the stories and have that opportunity to really honor them in that way. I'd also mention there's a survivor benefits booklet as well as the federal benefits booklet. The survivor one really explains the survivor benefits available, but that will help you to kind of see information you need to have when you apply. And if you're preparing in advance to help you kind of prepare financially, just as Amy was talking about, to know a little bit about what to expect in compensation at that point in time. So it's just that preparedness is really key. And I know it's a lot to kind of think about. There's a lot of links I know that were dropped in the chat. But if you don't again have to do it all at once, the important thing is to start having the conversation, take a look at those benefit booklets and start kind of working through them, and reach out for available support through our Office of Survivors Assistance or the Survivors Assistance and Memorial Support Program at VA.
One of the questions that I've received is what survivor benefits are out there? Do I get anything? Is there anything that I'm eligible for? Because I did not serve, my spouse did. But could you kind of just maybe give us a few that are available, just kind of list them so if someone out there doesn't know that they might be eligible for some assistance?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to know that we have two different departments that offer various benefits for survivors. So we have the Veterans Benefits Administration, and then we have the National Cemetery Administration. So, really, kind of the burial benefits, for the most part, fall under National Cemetery. There is an allowance for burial as well, and there are certain eligibility requirements related to if a spouse wants to be buried with a veteran, and those are all very much laid out on the website. For survivors, there's also some types of compensation that can be available to certain survivors. And again, I actually have it right here. I would really recommend for caregivers, you can't really see it with the background, the Planning Your Legacy booklet, just to go through that and work through it and see which benefits you might be eligible for.
I will tell you at AARP, the most sought after
Mhm.
guide is the burial benefits guide. And
Yes.
one of our most visited stories, and Amy put the link up there, is a story of the updated benefits that are available for burial and for the survivors. I
Mhm.
mean, this is a topic that, like we said at the beginning, a lot of people maybe don't want to talk about, but it's
Yeah.
beneficial to them, their well-being, and their loved ones' well-being to talk.
That's right. Yeah, it's so important to have those conversations. So appreciate AARP for putting that benefit booklet together too.
And there is so much information out there. Is there one location where you've aggregated a lot of this info, or is it you just have to go to different sites?
Yeah, well, that is our goal. So interesting that you say that. We would love to have there be really one place that survivors can go to really see that comprehensive packet of information or all of the information in one place. So that is a goal that we have talked about at VA because it can get kind of confusing and complicated to navigate all of that. So that's a future state goal. But again, I would really look at that survivor benefits and services link, because I think that gives a really good overview snapshot of the services and benefits available for survivors.
So one thing I've been asking the panelists, every single one, give me 1 to 3 tips that will help that person, for you looking for those burial survivor benefits or planning. What are the
Mhm.
3 things that really you should have aligned to help you and help the loved one, your loved one?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I would say have the conversation. There is a really wonderful resource that's called the Conversation Project. It's not a VA resource, but it really talks about how to have the conversation, especially around advanced care planning. And we should all have that as caregivers, as family members, as veterans, as humans walking this planet. We should all have an advanced care plan in place that helps you let your health choices be known to your family and then talk about it with them. Communication is super key. I would also recommend doing the pre burial eligibility link. You can register with that through the National Cemetery Administration link. So I would definitely recommend that. For most certain. And then I think really what often comes as a surprise to caregivers is how their financial status changes after they become a survivor. And I really want to kind of impart on caregivers and family members the importance of really understanding what benefits will look like after a veteran dies so that you can prepare financially. I think that some of what Amy and Melissa have talked about too is just being able to be prepared for when that time comes and know what to expect is really key. We want to make sure that survivors are in the best space that they can be when they get to that point in their journey.
And also, a lot of times you lay it out and, you know, you have to modify along the way,
Mm.
but at least you have a plan. And that's
Yeah.
what will make a huge difference in people's mental state, emotional state.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You can alter those plans, you can change those plans, but having something in place and beginning that conversation, even if it's a really hard conversation, is really important.
Leah, thank you so much for joining us. I cannot
Mm.
thank you enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This information is great. And unfortunately, sometimes it is after your spouse has moved on that you get those spousal survivor benefits. But the information you shared with us is worth its weight in gold. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think, Sierra, you're going to be joining me here again. These panelists were amazing, Sierra, Amy, Melissa, Dr. Davis, Leah. I mean, we had the Red Cross, we had the VA, we had AARP and caregiving. I mean, across the board, great resources, great information. And I hope, it is my wish that if we help one to a million people. That's what I want to do. I want to be able to help them all. So many resources to share in chat. We've had them.
There are so many resources, and we will be adding all of these and more to the Blue Star neighborhood. Juanita, thank you so much for leading this discussion. I truly appreciate you, Leah, for being here for the difficult conversations. Amy, Melissa, the resources and the knowledge you have from lived experiences are so fruitful and important to share with those who are going through it. Dr. Davis, Angie, we appreciate you being here. And I want to say that On Watch is a webinar series. So tonight is not the end. It's really just beginning. AARP and Blue Star families are working to have these conversations so that we can bring the VA, bring resources that are applicable to all of our veterans, our active duty military service members, family members, caregivers, so that you can have direct lines of communications. So I appreciate you all being here with us this evening. We will have more On Watch webinars coming from transitioning from active duty to understanding your VA rating, and also things like what is considered a service-connected condition and how to take, get all of your veterans benefits that you deserve. So thank you all for being here. We will share the recording in the future. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email us or bring them to the neighborhood and we will get back to you. Thanks, Juanita. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Leah. Have a great evening, everyone.